Okay, we are live once again. My name's Federico and this is InspireTalk Radio. I have another exciting guest tonight on the show, and in tonight's catch-up or series, I guess, we are still on the series of disruption. In fact, what we're doing is we're unveiling the minds of 500 Aussie entrepreneurs that are disrupting their retail sector. And tonight's sector is about retail. I guess it can also be about sustainability. It can also be about health and well-being, etc. But I'd like to introduce Vinita Baravkar as our special guest tonight. How are you, Vinita?
I'm very well, thank you, Vinita. Thank you for having me.
It's an absolute honour and pleasure to have you equally. And thanks for being available at this time of night. I know that you've got a million other things to do as well as talking to me, so I really appreciate your time. So I guess, Vinita, tonight I'd like to really focus on how you're, I guess, disrupting your industry sector with your niche business. And I guess for the listeners or for the viewers that will be tuning in, I'd like to sort of present you the way you present yourself publicly or online. So you are the founder of Boomy Organic Cotton, and your passion is about creating an earth-life balance, and I guess that's your ethos to your business. You believe in organic living, and you're disrupting the retail sector with sustainable fair trade products. You have a background in public health, and you've seen firsthand the disastrous health and environmental impacts of traditional cotton growing, and it was time for a change. So, Vinita, in a nutshell, when did you start your business? And I guess what inspired you to kickstart that venture in the retail sector?
Sure. So as you mentioned, my background was actually in international public health, and I spent a lot of time actually in India and across areas of Bangladesh, and did a lot of travel there as well, not knowing anything about the textile industry. So back then I was doing projects and traveling, and I didn't actually stop to question what was actually going on. I didn't know. We don't really hear about it. We don't talk about it. It's not really in the mainstream media. But what I saw was really quite devastating, and that changed everything for me because I saw the same patterns everywhere that I was traveling.
Yes.
Impacts on the earth, toxic soils, toxic waterways, and then impacts on the human element. So
Yes.
pesticides, pesticide poisoning, child labour, sweatshops, working conditions. So it really changed me as a person, and I think the more I saw, the more I vowed that I needed to try and help change that and help spread the message and let people know what's actually going on, because I certainly didn't know it, and I wanted to change that.
That's fantastic, and look, it's very honourable that you're taking an initiative in this area. And I guess if more of us did that, we would be more rapidly solving a lot of the global issues that we have in the environment. So I guess in terms of your business, Boomy Organic Cotton, so tell us a little bit about that. Fundamentally, what is its mission specifically, and where do you want to go with it?
So Bhumi actually means Mother Earth, and it's the ancient Sanskrit word for Mother Earth. Basically, it's about creating positive choices for people to have positive consumer choices, to have that impact on the earth and the planet. The beauty of certified organic cotton is that there are no genetically modified seeds used, there's no toxic dyes used, there's no pesticides used, no toxic chemicals, no child labour, and it's fair trade. So it's really looking about different ways that we wear and use textiles, and knowing the difference between conventional and organic, and just people. And I think with Boomy, we want to try and create the fact that you can't always control outside external environment, what you're exposed to. In your home, it's your sanctuary, it's your sacred space. You can try and control what chemicals are around or what you expose yourself or your family to. So Boomy offers the basics, the foundations, the fundamentals across bedding, bath, body, and we've just introduced baby as well. So.
Okay. So look, every startup, as you know yourself, has its challenges and its obstacles. So I guess looking at your journey so far, how many years has it been since you founded the business?
We started, I'd say, the end of 2011, 2012.
Okay.
And
So in that time frame, what has been, I guess, what have been your top 2 or 3 challenges that you've had to overcome, or you're still trying to overcome to get this business off the ground, and I guess your brand noticed in the industry?
sure, I think the biggest thing for me in particular was coming from health and jumping into retail with no
Yes.
retail experience, no marketing experience. So quite a steep learning curve. But I saw that along the way, whatever mistakes I might have made, that was learning in itself. So it was a slower growth in that sense, that taking that jumping ship and learning new ways. How do I get the message out to people? Learning new marketing strategies, being a bit more tech savvy is still something that I consider a wonderful challenge, because I think
Yep.
as we time we always need to refresh what we know. But I'd say the biggest thing is shift from health to retail.
So what I'm hearing you say is it's really about being adaptable, being flexible, being resilient, and I guess I'm starting to extract some of the words that I define the ultimate entrepreneur, or the serial entrepreneur that survives the industry for more than 4 years, and I guess for decades, or constantly reinventing himself, is able to tolerate those obstacles as much as they can to survive. And I guess what you're saying is very much your skill set, or your philosophy to survival, just to keep pushing on and keep reinventing yourself. So that's, look, I can really relate to that perspective that you have. Coming back to the essence of your business and its ethos, how is it impacting people's lives on a day-to-day in Australia? Let's get to the nitty-gritty. In Australia, day-to-day, how does it actually benefit people?
Sure. So I think the beautiful thing that we're seeing at the moment in Australia is people are asking a lot of questions. They're asking where did it come from? How was it made? Where was it made? And one big thing that we're seeing is a lot of people with skin sensitivities actually asking, or the doctors even saying, we go towards more organic cotton where there are no. Because what's not known in the textile industry is things like the dyes. There's no legislation to say exactly what dyes are put in the textiles that we wear and use and sleep in.
Yes.
So I think having that transparency with our customers, talking about what is actually in it, telling people what's going on and what's actually in the product. So I think the biggest thing would be that people here in Australia are aware of what our product is, how it was made, where it was made, from the journey from seed right through to shelf. And just to put it all a little bit in context as well, the skin, it takes around 6 seconds for it to absorb whatever you put it on, especially if your skin is warmer, it's faster. So say for when you're sleeping at night or after a hot shower, the skin is warm, whatever you put onto it enters directly into your bloodstream. And what's known, that's from around the world, big organisations, that a lot of the conventional dyes that are used are quite toxic. They're carcinogenic, hormone disruptive, quite a lot of toxic chemicals and concoctions put in there, but it's not legislated that we need to know what's on it. So a lot of people are having reactions from little ones right through to adults. So I think having that impact on people here in Australia, and for them knowing what's in the product.
So obviously there's a real focus on better health, and I can see from what you've said how it does benefit the consumer directly with their health, and that's, again, quite honourable that you prioritise that in your product rather than just going out there making money. So I guess there's certainly a lot of social entrepreneurship in all that, and I guess looking at disrupting the industry, let's sort of move forward and let's focus really on the term disruption, because this interview is also about understanding your perspective on disrupting, or maybe another word to use is innovating. So how do you innovate your product, or how are you innovating your product or your industry, and I guess being different to all the other competitors? Perhaps you've touched upon some of those already, but perhaps if we really focus on innovation and disrupting as a way of competing and as a way of really reaching out to the world and really making a serious impact to this global environmental issue that we have.
Sure. I love the word disruption. I think it's akin to the word change, and I love change. I think it's really about challenging status quo. And in the textile industry, things have gone on for so long without it being questioned. And I think it is time that there is a disruption to that, that we do know what is actually going on. We know all the facts behind it. And I think disruption allows for just different perspectives, for people to start questioning things and turning it around and saying, asking the questions, the why, how, where, who. And I think that in the textile industry, we're seeing it more so, but I think it's just shaking things up and challenging status quo.
Yeah. So why is it important for business owners, whether they're small businesses or large businesses, to disrupt in this day of age? I mean, what's your perspective on that?
I think my perspective would be, especially as a small business owner, challenging the bigger businesses that have been doing this for so long, in, say, the textile retail world, of providing an option of the non-conventional side, of what's actually out there, and questioning it and asking consumers to actually question that, which doesn't really happen with the bigger industries. And I think as a small business, having that differentiator by saying, this is the facts, this is what's going on, now the choice is yours. So shaking that up.
I love that perspective, and I can't stop to think about what the pioneer of McDonald's once did, Ray Kroc, where he disrupted, the food industry and obviously revolutionized the fast food industry, because he was tired of being done in a certain way for so long, and hence that vision enabled him to disrupt his sector. So it's good to see that in your sector you're doing something to disrupt, and I guess looking forward and competing, I guess. To disrupt your industry, and I'll give you 3 choices to rate, or perhaps what is your favorite or the most important, is what is most important in terms of forming strategic partnerships as compared to having sufficient cash or venture capital versus being a good leader, an influential leader. So partnerships, venture capital, or being a good leader, which of those 3 would you rank first, or perhaps put them in order to really effectively disrupt the industry that you're in?
I love being a good leader. I think having that leadership and leading from the front. And for me, it's really also about telling people what I've seen and the impacts of that. I then sharing that, I think, is really important. And talking the talk, walking the walk, living a way of life where it is organic, and questioning, what am I putting on my skin? What am I putting in my body? What am I putting on my body when I sleep? Things like that. I think knowledge is very powerful, and I think as a leader, to be able to share that with people, it shifts that consciousness. So I think I would say the leadership.
The leadership is in your top favorite. So I guess it's leading by example, but a lot of creative people, even, and this is my personal experience, is a lot of the creative people often don't have that leadership confidence or skill set, and perhaps your background in business or in another profession has enabled you to develop that leadership capability. So, what advice would you give, aspiring entrepreneurs or people, say, in your sector trying to do what you're doing? How do you become a good leader? Like, what's a tip you can offer?
Yeah, I strongly believe that if you're passionate about it and you absolutely love it and believe in it and you practice it, then go ahead. Just keep swimming. It's like a turtle. They're in the ocean with lots of predators around them. Just keep swimming. You hold on to that belief firmly and just keep going.
Absolutely. Look, I love passion. For me, passion is like quality fuel in the car. With an empty tank, the car's not going to go anywhere. So I guess I can really, again, relate to how instrumental passion is for anyone trying to start a business. So, it's the best way you can overcome the obstacles, the skeptics, the challenges ahead of you by simply believing in what you're doing. Before we go forward, you haven't mentioned much about the strategic partnerships, I guess, which was one of the options you had to select. So you've really ranked high leadership, but I guess in a few words, what are your experiences, or perhaps what's your philosophy to having good partnerships, or perhaps looking at the venture capital side, like having cash? How important is that for a business?
I'll start with Chris, sorry.
The partnerships, yeah.
I'll start with partnerships. For the textile industry, I think one thing, again, that I saw and I wanted to really create that change, was knowing from seed to shelf there was strict certification. So it took me quite a few years to research on the ground and who to trust in terms of certification to ensure things were strict. Because I have seen it myself, that if things aren't strict, there are always loopholes, and that's not right. Then there is no impact on the planet, there's no impact on humanity. So I felt that having strict certifications, which I think for the textile industry was GOTS and fair trade, and being in Australia, it's Fair Trade Australia, I think having those strategic partnerships and certifications really ensures the journey along the way from seed to shelf, and also for consumers to know that from the beginning right through the end product that it is transparent and there is no room for anything that's negative.
So I guess it's building up. It's building a credential based on regulation, based on standards that are set, and if you're endorsed for all those, then obviously there's credibility, trust, and truth behind what you stand for. So just before we move on quickly on cash, venture capital, can you start a business on a shoestring budget, or how important is having enough money in the bank?
I think that's one of the challenges that I faced initially with Boomi, was it's not like, say, New York or Silicon Valley where there is access to seed funding. So it was really all my savings put into the seed to start Boomi, and Boomi's grown organically. So what the growth of Boomi is, it goes back into the business. So it's self-funded. So it's been a slower, more organic growth, but I think it is important if you want it to be a wider reach.
Sure. Okay, well, thank you for that insight. So I guess moving forward in the next subject of skill set, being an entrepreneur, having the right mindset, etc., there's often a debate or an argument between, having talent versus having the right education, and again, really leveraging on connections. So once again, out of those three options of talent, education, and connections, which of the three can you relate to the most as being your most effective, or perhaps your personal attribute, or area where you've really leveraged on the most to disrupt?
For me, I found it was education, having the knowledge and being aware of what was going on and what the facts were. I think that's really important to know where and what points to actually try and change things and make the changes. So having that base foundation to which then have the vision, the ideas, the passion to then go forward and create something different and see which points you can change, that's the tipping.
Education. Okay, so I guess people out there might be thinking, I'm starting a business, I haven't really been educated in business for that matter, but I have some skills. I believe I have a point of difference. How important is, again, talent in this respect? Being good at what you're doing, is that in your view should be ranked really high?
Being good at what you're doing. Okay, we're going to pause that one. Because I see it as,
I guess putting it into context of being an entrepreneur, being able to survive, being able to compete, how important is skill set, attributes, and talent?
Yes, so skill sets is something that's been interesting for me. I've learnt along the way, but had to sharpen quite quickly, because there are other people around you and you learn from what other people are doing and sharpen yours. Again, coming from health into retail, not knowing much, having that education and learning on the spot, learning through mistakes, that was important. If I knew it more beforehand, it would have been a different journey. It probably would have been a faster journey.
Yeah. So I love what you've said. It really resonates for me, learning from mistakes. So even though you don't have the skills to begin with, over time with experience, you develop those skills. So the key is to be able to stay fervent, stay focused, deal with the ups and downs, and learn as you go. And certainly I can relate to that personally too as an entrepreneur. Once again, thank you for sharing that. So looking at retail in a general sense and opportunities that it can present to aspiring entrepreneurs entering the marketplace, and say there are aspiring entrepreneurs like yourself that want to go into retail, what are the opportunities that perhaps exist, generally speaking, in retail, and maybe put a focus again around your industry?
Yeah, I think the the fact that in Australia it's a really receptive environment, I'm finding that people are making those conscious choices and conscious decision making. So I think knowing that that's the shift at the moment, really working on what people are wanting, people want, and working on product sets. And I think, again, in Australia, very receptive to new products, new ideas, and challenging status quo. We're really seeing a shift in that lately.
Sure. So doing things differently, unconventionally, almost going against the grain, and that's very much what a game changer does. And again, the disruption behind people like yourself. In terms of looking at the world, if there was fundamentally one thing you'd do differently or change, whatever that is, what would that be?
I am very passionate about children. I think I've seen too many children in circumstances where they just shouldn't be doing what they're doing. In the textile industry, for example, there's over 100 million children in child labour, and that's just beyond wrong. So I would love for all children to have access to education and resources. I firmly believe that all children deserve a chance. They all deserve opportunity. I would love to change that.
Fantastic, and I do hope that eventuates much sooner than perhaps what the skeptics have to say about that. The children are our future, and obviously, if they're nurtured, if they're protected, and if they're encouraged, the future certainly looks a lot brighter than perhaps the way it may be going at the moment. Before we wrap up, I really want to sort of look at the distant future once again, and pulling out a binocular or a telescope, with your intuition, your vision, your experience so far, and your endeavours and ambitions. What programs or initiatives do you think should develop or will develop over time to, I guess, combat a lot of the challenges and problems that do exist in your particular industry of what you're doing specifically?
Mm-hmm. I think, again, going back on the point of the conscious consumer, really tapping into what people are wanting and asking. So I love seeing that people are asking about products, how they want to buy it, when they want to buy it, where they want to buy it from. So having that control with the people is really fantastic, and I think that's going to grow a lot more as people become more aware about what's going on in the textile industry.
Sure.
I strongly feel that with knowledge brings power,
Yes.
brings choice, and choice will bring change. And
Love
I think we're seeing globally, definitely. And I like the fact that there is reach, that people can buy across the world, knowing the experience behind the product. So I think looking at the experiential factor of the product and who you are and the retail space that you're in really can make that shift, can make that positive impact. And so I love seeing that the power is with the people.
Right.
And as it should.
Look, I really love the quote you said before, and I won't state it because I probably won't be able to say it the same way as you did, that knowledge brings choice, etc., etc. I'm certainly going to record that down once I go back over this interview. Thanks for sharing that insight. So I guess I want to wrap up now, Vinita, and sincerely thank you for your time, for your thoughts, for your experiences, which certainly will serve the aspiring entrepreneurial community out there that will be taking notes, really understanding what ticks, what drives people like yourself who are going against the grain, really doing something that's unconventional, but really looking ahead and seeing what the world is needing. So it's a very honourable thing you're doing, Vinita. So before we finish up, how can people get in contact with you? What's the best way? Do you have a website?
Absolutely.
Maybe a phone number? Or
yeah, so we have a website. So it's boomi.com.au. It has all our email addresses, and we have a physical store here in Melbourne.
Yes.
As well. We welcome any questions, anytime. We love dialogue, so we welcome it.
So just for accuracy, how do you actually spell your website?
vhumi.com.au.
Fabulous, fantastic. Again, thank you. And what we'll do now is wrap up and end the session, and hopefully we'll be in touch very soon. So just stay online, Vinita. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you.